Folks, self-defense shootings can many times be chaotic scenes that could result in you accidentally getting killed by the responding police, or also getting wrongfully arrested for defending yourself. So watch this video to save your butt a second time after you just saved your butt the first time from that violent criminal. So stay tuned to learn what 90% of the general public out there doesn't know. Freedom seats for everyone! That's just fun as can be. So folks, as a 20-year police veteran and then also somebody that's been unfortunately involved in a self-defense police action shooting myself, unfortunately I've got personal experience in this subject matter. So my hope with this video is that you as the viewer can learn more about what happens to you both physically and mentally and legally after a self-defense shooting, so that this will help better prepare you for when that moment of truth comes. So folks, here is tip number one for if you are ever forced to have to shoot a bad guy in self-defense. And tip number one is to absolutely do not, if you can at all possible, do not still have your firearm in your hand for when the police arrive. When the police get dispatched on things, they many times get very little information when they get dispatched. So when they arrive, they're not going to have very much information other than just a person shot. They're not going to know if you're the good guy or the bad guy or what have you. People have a tendency to scream over the phone to dispatchers. Dispatchers don't get all the information. They don't broadcast it correctly over to the police. So when the police arrive, anybody that has a gun that's not in uniform will be a threat to the police, because the police know that's all it takes. So do not have your gun in your hands when the police arrive. Even us police officers are taught that if we are off duty and if we are not in uniform, to not have our guns in our hands when the uniformed cops arrive. Again, because that is all it takes. So anybody with a gun in their hand, in actuality, anybody with a gun in reach that's not in uniform will be considered a threat to the police. Now, if I were involved in another shooting and I was near my car, I would probably put my gun in my glove box in my car if I could safely do so before the police arrived. If I was at home, probably stick it in a nearby drawer, again, if I can safely do so. But I would just try my best to not have my gun in my hand when the police arrive. The simple fact is, you would hate to save your life from a bad guy just to get killed by the cops when they arrive, because they don't know what's going on and you appear, even for a split second, to be a deadly threat to them. And here is tip number two of things never to do after you've been forced to shoot a bad guy in self-defense, and that is, don't scream over the phone when you call 911. Again, screams are not easily understood by dispatchers. So if you're screaming, "Oh my gosh, I just shot somebody," the dispatcher may not be correctly understanding you or what's going on. And when the dispatcher doesn't understand you correctly, then they relay bad information over the radio waves to the cops that's going to be responding. So the more information that you can calmly give to the dispatcher, then she can relay that information to the responding police. I've just been forced to shoot somebody in self-defense. I am wearing a dark gray long-sleeved t-shirt and green pants. I am at the Safeway grocery store parking lot located at whatever intersection. Again, I was forced to shoot a bad guy in self-defense that tried to rob me. Please start help and start medics. Now, as soon as you hang up from 911, the next thing you need to do is to call like Firearms Legal Protection, who will have an attorney that will answer, and you say, "Hey, I just got involved in a self-defense shooting. Here's what happened. The police are on their way," and they're going to tell you exactly what to say or do with the police as they respond. And then if you get arrested for defending yourself, Firearms Legal Protection will start working to get you bonded out. And then if your case goes to trial because you defended yourself, then Firearms Legal Protection will provide you with free expert self-defense attorneys that will fight on your behalf in court. They will provide a free expert self-defense attorney that would normally cost thousands and thousands of dollars to help hand a defeat to that local prosecutor that's trying to put you into prison for the rest of your life. If you're interested in checking out the Firearms Legal Protection, I will put an affiliate link down below so you can check them out if you want to. And here is tip number 3 of what never to do after you've been forced to shoot a bad guy in self-defense, and that is to make a detailed statement to the responding police. You never want to make a detailed statement to the police until after you've had at least 2 nights of sleep. Not just 2 nights, but 2 nights of sleep. Now, when the police respond to your self-defense shooting scene, they are going to have a lot of technical questions because they are going to have to recreate that scene. They're going to have to thoroughly investigate that scene because there's a dead human there. And don't sweat it that they're going to ask you these technical questions, because even when us police get involved in a police action shooting, the other responding cops all show up and want to ask us what happened and exactly what happened. It's just natural on a big incident like that. People want to know exactly what occurred. In that time, immediately after a self-defense shooting, that time is not when you want to be answering technical questions, because you will be in a hyper state. You will have adrenaline will be screaming through your body. You'll have, simply put, if you try to answer too many questions after a self-defense shooting in that excited state that you're going to be in, that you're going to have too big of a chance that you will say something that can be, you can say something that's innocent, but it can be so easily misconstrued later in court. So my simple advice is, what I believe is the best thing to say after you've been involved in a self-defense shooting and the police arrive and they ask you what happened, is a simple statement of, that gentleman pulled a knife on me, I was in fear for my life, so I defended myself. Now I don't want to answer any more questions until I have my attorney present with me, and now I don't feel good and I wish to be taken to the hospital. Now, I don't want to get too deep into that because that deserves its own video itself of what to say to the police when they arrive. And your firearms legal protection attorney will actually know this, and they will actually, as soon as you get involved in that shooting and you call them, their 24-hour hotline, they will tell you exactly what to say, what to expect. And then they also will not let you talk to the police to give that detailed statement, even if you decide that you guys are even going to do it. But they are going to know the scientific reasons behind you not giving a more detailed statement until at least 72 hours or after 2 nights of sleep after the incident. And here is tip number 4 of things never to do or to do after you've been involved in a self-defense shooting. And that tip number 4 is, don't treat the police as your friend, but at the same time, don't treat them as your enemy. Just be respectful. Give them that brief statement that I mentioned in tip number 3, I think it was, and then just get with your firearms legal protection attorney as soon as you possibly can after that shooting. If you watched my channel long enough, you know, you've seen the proof that I've given you that most cops across the United States, the vast majority of cops across the United States, are pro Second Amendment and pro good guy defending himself against a bad guy with a gun. But you never know when you do run into that one cop that doesn't like guns, that doesn't like self-defenders, and may view you as a vigilante for protecting yourself against a violent bad guy rather than the good self-defender that you are. And here is tip number 5, which is never leave the scene after you've been forced to shoot a bad guy in self-defense. Folks, every time I do some type of a self-defense type video, inevitably there's always somebody that makes the comment of, if I have to shoot a bad guy in self-defense, I'm just getting the heck out of there so I don't have to deal with the legal hassle. Folks, this is horrible advice if you ever hear it. Folks, in today's world, it's almost impossible to be someplace and leave that area without it being known, without being found out that you were there. Your cell phones, just whatever. There's just a video surveillance cameras, witnesses. It's hard for you to leave the scene of a dead body without the police eventually finding out who you are and that you were there. Folks, if you leave the scene of a legal self-defense shooting, that's going to make, the cops aren't going to know it's a legal self-defense shooting until they do the whole investigation, until they speak with you and find out what occurred to make you shoot that bad guy in self-defense. So when you leave a legal self-defense shooting, you are inadvertently turning that into a murder investigation instead of a justified homicide investigation. Now, of course, if you are still in danger at that scene and you need to leave that scene in order to save your life, now that's a whole different story. But again, if you are not forced to leave that scene and you do leave that self-defense shooting scene, you have turned that from a self-defense shooting investigation to a murder investigation. Once you leave the scene like that, it's going to make the police believe that you are hiding something, and it's going to make them less likely to believe you when you say that you legally defended yourself. And here is tip number 6, which is never, after a self-defense shooting, never touch anything or tamper with evidence, if at all possible. If you are forced to shoot a bad guy in self-defense and he drops his gun, as gun owners, as people that regularly handle guns, we always have that tendency that when there's a loaded gun laying there, we always want to grab that gun and we want to unload it, and we want to make it safe for when the other people arrive. So don't do that unless you absolutely have to. If you shoot a bad guy and he drops that gun and he's trying to crawl and reach it, that's a different story. Knock the gun further away from him, whatever it is that you got to do to keep him from reaching that gun a second time. But if it's a clean shoot, you shoot him, he drops that gun, nobody's trying to go for it or what have you, just leave that gun there. Don't unload it. Don't get your prints on that gun. Don't open up a whole bunch of, don't muddy the legal waters, as they say. Make sure that the evidence that you point out to the responding police, the evidence is left so that it corroborates your story. If you're at home and you sort of shoot a burglar in your house and your dirty underwear is on the floor, or if your sex swing is hanging in the living room, or whatever you freaks have out there, you just want to be able to honestly say to the police that you did not do anything to change the integrity of that scene. That will be what will help you the best, especially down the road if a greedy attorney is trying to sue you in civil court. So why don't you do me a favor and comment down below with your thoughts on this. What some things that you think that you could add that people should or should not do after a self-defense shooting. Hey, I also want you to comment down below with some of the silliest advice you have ever heard for self-defense shootings. And folks, to learn how this gun company plans to defeat gun control while also still giving you excellent prices on guns and ammunition, then click on the video that should be appearing on the screen just about now to learn that powerful knowledge. Anyways, folks, that is enough internet for today. It is time to go train. And folks, if you made it this far, hey, thank you very much for watching, and I pray that you have a good night.